Okay, so hello and welcome to the BlueSpice 3 beta presentation. My name is Markus Glaser. I'm head of development at Hallo Welt, the company that develops BlueSpice. And I want to give you a preview, a quick overview of the major new and notable changes we did to BlueSpice 3 compared to BlueSpice 2. I will walk you around that for, I think, half an hour or so, and then we have a lot of time for questions if you have any. Okay, so I assume you can see the screen here. This is the new skin for BlueSpice 3. It's more lightweight. It's optimized for reading in the first place. We do have, if you know BlueSpice 2 has a very prominent navigation menu. We kind of hid that in side panels now, which you can expand here. That is the left side navigation. We also have a right navigation, which is more for actions you can do with a page. But when you look at it in at a first glance, you can simply focus on the content, so you have no distraction, or we try to minimize the possible distractions as much as possible. As it is a wiki, the edit and participation things are very important. So we still have a prominent edit button here in the top area of BlueSpice, as well as a prominent add things button. The navigation is hidden left and right. On the left side, you see the familiar navigation menu, which you probably know from MediaWiki and also from BlueSpice, if you're familiar with BlueSpice 2, which has different tabs here. So those did not change much. The main navigation can be found in the burger icon. Then we have a book section. We have a personal section where you can put your own links. And there is the administrative or global actions section here. What you can see here is that we added another layer for the navigation, which is a third layer, basically. I can show it to you in recent changes here, for example. So if I click on recent changes, a panel opens, and you can see the information, and we will find more of these elements on the right navigation. If the panel here, and that's also new, it can be made sticky. So if I don't have it sticky and I reload the page, then the panel automatically is hidden again. But for those people who like the navigation present, they can make it sticky by clicking that button, and then the navigation stays unfolded. On the right side, we do have the actions that are related with the page. So these are more for publishers, for power editors, for power authors, who want to know more about the page, who want to work with quality assurance, for example. So we have this checkboard panel, which is information. And here you can see another of this third level menu. So this is page information, where you can find which categories are used, who read this page, which templates are used on this page, when was the last edit, who was the last editor, and all kinds of things you need to know, for example, to assess the quality of a page. There is also a toolbox, which is the classical MediaWiki toolbox that can be found here. Then we do have the actions tool, which contains the classical MediaWiki page actions like delete, move, protect, and also the export functions like export to PDF, or view the discussion page, view the history. And then there is this quality management tab, which now contains all the quality management features, quality assurance features we had in BlueSpice 2. They're bundled here in this tab. So people who are mainly working with quality management, quality assurance, they can find all the information they need here. And again, we have this third layer of information. So we think this makes navigation faster because you don't have to open a dialog and it's easier to find. And you can find all the relevant information by just clicking from top to bottom here. If you want to work with reminder or expiry or review. It's also possible to do quick actions from this information panel. So if, for example, I want to have a reminder for that page in a few weeks, I can see, is there a reminder for me? I see that in that tab. And I can also create a reminder just from within that very element. The right button is also, the right panel is also, of course, sticky. So you can, for people who work in quality assurance, you can make that sticky and keep it open all the time. In the navigation, in the recent changes, for example, you can see another new element which we introduced in BlueSpice 3, and that is the page preview. So what you see here is an actual screenshot of that page, and we use these screenshots throughout various elements of BlueSpice. And we think it makes navigation, it makes the recognition of an article easier because you can see the shape, you can see the lead image, for example, and you can easily identify the pages you're working on. The recent changes here is just an example. Another one would be the books section. If we go to books, you can see that we have a book here. We have a book about installation, another test book, and they look different in shape, so they're easier to identify and quicker to find. I see there is a question in the chat. Just let me check. Okay, which flavors and versions of SQL and PHP are we doing beta testing with? And what are the installation requirements? So basically, we test with MariaDB, which is a flavor of MySQL, and it's 100% compatible. And actually, MySQL is the only database engine we support currently. That is because most of MediaWiki development, and MediaWiki, as you probably know, is the underlying engine which BlueSpice runs on. They do mostly MySQL, and MediaWiki itself is theoretically compatible with Postgres and a few other SQL engines. But if you go into the extension world, then you find that there is almost only support for MySQL and no support for other versions. So MySQL or MariaDB, that is the database engine, and PHP, the target version of PHP is 7, PHP 7 plus. So it works with 7, 7.1, and 7.2. It doesn't work with PHP 5.6, although PHP 5.6 is pretty old. So I think if you run PHP 5.6, you should consider updating to PHP 7 anyways. What do you need to have installed before you upgrade when BlueSpice 3 is released? So BlueSpice 3 comes, the requirement for BlueSpice until now was you have to have an Apache or a web server, Apache information server running. You have a database engine, you have PHP. And then we also require a Tomcat application server for search. We required in the past for search, for visual diff, and for PDF generation. Now, and I'll come to that later, we have reworked the search completely. So now it's based on Elasticsearch. That is one point. So Tomcat is still needed for visual diff and PDF generation, but Elasticsearch is a software in its own. It brings its own server, so you have to have Elasticsearch installed on your system. And another feature we added, or we switched to, which I'll show you later, is the visual editor of MediaWiki. There is now a native visual editor to MediaWiki, and that requires Node.js as a base system. So to the system requirements we had so far, which is MySQL, PHP, Tomcat, we need Node.js and Elasticsearch on top now. Another question is, how flexible is the navigation system in the skin, and can we stack second level menus on the sidebar? And is it possible to add the old status bar visibility? So the navigation is flexible. We can customize it for you. As of now, there is no planned second level, which you can just, write a list of first and second level items, and then you get a second level, because that second level usually has some extra functionality, as you can see here. So this is not just a list of pages, but it's compiled. The screenshots must be made. But upon request, of course, we can also add a tab here which adds just a list of pages like this, which you can then use. And the old status bar, that is a good question. We initially thought we'd put the information all here. I can see that not all information is present, and you want to see that at a glance. So currently what we do is we're investigating a setup where we have a one-liner status just below that heading. So it would be page assignments, and then below that you would see person Markus Glaser is assigned to this page, or you would see reminder, and then there's a line, there's one reminder for you. Also in the page information, you would see these are the categories assigned to this page, for example. So that would replace the status bar, but it would still make all the required information available at a glance. Because I agree with you, it's a bit, it's very hidden to have all the information, to have to click in order to access this information. There would be the possibility to add a status bar. We do have an element here which we can use. For now, this element is reserved for like immediate action or immediate information type of text. So, for example, if someone else is editing that page, then I would see someone else is editing that page. So this is like this very prominent, and it makes sure that you cannot accidentally not see it. I think upon customer request, we can put a status bar in here. It doesn't totally fit into the navigation concept, but we are seeing that there is a need for more prominent information, and we want to put it here at the first level of this menu. Okay. Going back to the new skin, I showed you the top bar. There's search, which we will look into afterwards. There's one new element at the bottom, and that is a discussion. So from now on in BlueSpice 3, you can discuss the article, and you can do threaded discussions here. So someone can ask a question regarding the content of the article. Someone else can answer that question, and you do have structured kind of discussions here. I show you this in more detail later because that's the third big new feature we put into BlueSpice 3. For the skin, there is one thing I want to show you because that's new and that was very often requested. This skin is completely responsive. So what I can do here is I can make it smaller or I can make it bigger. And what you see is that this is the screen as you just saw it. When I make it smaller, then at some point you see that it adjusts to the new size, and it adjusts again here. So this is the mobile view basically. And let me just reload the page. So in mobile view, we put a special focus on the mobile view. And you can see that the elements here are still work. So also the third level, there's a navigation concept that is mobile friendly, and also a display concept that is mobile friendly. And also, if you pay close attention, there's an image here, and the image is too big. In the final version of BlueSpice 3, there will be a class which you can put on that image, and then the image will scale or will be replaced with a smaller version if you go to mobile. So we are also taking that into account. Okay, so much for the new look and feel. The main intention behind the look and feel was to make more lightweight, to remove as much distractions as possible from the user's attention, if not needed. And for people who need it, they can always go back to the old rich feature-rich view and make these elements sticky. Okay, so yeah, and then there's one I just want to show you because we sometimes talk about that. That skin is called BlueSpice Kaloma, and that's a Kaloma, just to show you how these neat little creatures look. The reason why we call it BlueSpice Kaloma is it's based on MediaWiki chameleon skin, and Kaloma is a kind of a species of a chameleon. So this that's Kaloma, and that's basically the mascot, if you want to say so, of the skin. Okay, back to the more serious things here. We have, as I just said in the system requirements, we replaced the search. We completely rewrote the search. It's no longer using Solr as a backend, but it's using Elasticsearch, which is a newer, more modern search backend. And I can, on the surface, I can do very similar things. Let me just reload this page. So if I type test here, I get the autocomplete, which probably most of you expect. We also have a concept of a top match. In this case, the top match is if there's an article that has exactly the same name as the search term you type, and then you get one of those previews again. You can search for full text. You can create the page from here. And there is also something like find similar articles to which you can look for. Yeah. So that's the auto completion. It's designed to look a little bit more inviting, and for people to make them curious and click into that. If the results in the auto completion are not enough for you, you can always go to the full text search, and then you get to the new search center, which, as you see, the view of this search is still in beta, so we're trying to make that more beautiful, of course. But again, if you search for test here, I get those focus hits, which do have a screenshot preview. I get all the other hits ranked by some mechanism that the search provides, which we are still tuning. And in the search results, you can see that you get a lot more like rich information. For example, which semantic properties, that is page metadata essentially, are included in these test pages, and sometimes it's pretty much here. But what you also can do is you can refine the search according to your own personal preferences. So if, for example, I search for test and I repeatedly find that the page RRR test should be more prominent, then I can just favor this search result, which I did now. And when I read search for test, and let me just do it again, then what you find is that this one result is featured on the top, so it's boosted, it's put more prominent in the list of search results. This is an experimental feature for us. We are trying to gain some experience during the beta phase with this. Actually, one idea we are following is that we want to take those markers from an individual level up to a system-wide level. So if we find that a lot of people favor one particular search result, then that might be a more interesting or a more relevant search result in certain contexts. And that might help the overall search performance in a company. Of course, the search relevant computation is some kind of complex thing. So this is one way to interfere and to manually change the prominence of a certain search result. We also, so I can also undo this, of course. We have the possibility to filter the search results. So what I can do here is I can click on that filter, and that gives you a list of possible filters. This is, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. I got a strange note that I left the meeting, which I didn't. Okay, so here the filters you can see here are essentially the facets we had in the old search. They're more flexible here. So I can, for example, say I want to filter this search for test, and I want to filter it for, say, for namespace. So I get this namespace filter, and then I see how many hits do I get in a namespace talk, for example, or in the namespace file. And then I can say, okay, I only want to see the hits from the pages namespace. So we're down to 49 hits instead of 200 and something. And I can add other filters, for example, category filter. So among those 49 hits, I do have 3 pages in the category organization, for example. And now I have broken it down to only 3 hits, or narrowed it down to 3 hits. This filter, this search result, can also be bookmarked. So you can see that the complete query as it is filtered is part of the URL. If you take that URL, which is complex but complete, you can put that into an email, send it to a friend. You can bookmark the query and re-ask the query 10 days later. Maybe something has changed. So it's kind of persistible. You can also export the search results here with the export button. So I find that here are 3 pages. They all have the same name, probably because I searched for test. And I can export these pages into a wiki page. So there will be a list of wiki pages then on that article for further use. And then I can use that list, for example, to put it into the export tool of MediaWiki and then export all these pages. Or I can add all the pages in this page collection to a book, for example, to add it as a chapter or as a sub-chapter for a book. The most powerful new feature for me personally of the new search is, however, that we can now search for semantic properties. So what I do now is I search for star, which gives me the full range of all articles. That's not necessary to search for semantic properties, but just to make it to have more hits available. And then I go to the filters and semantic properties. So if you're familiar with Semantic Media Wiki, this is a way to add metadata to articles, structured data to articles, and using that structured data that it is to say it in other words, it's widely used in organizations and enterprises where you have a lot of requirements for, I don't know, revision ID for, well, that's in German, but it says a document ID, document version, for example. Which organization, which department does this text belong to, however. So whatever, you can add a lot of meta information with semantics. Until now, it was not possible to use this information to search for it. So if I had, for example, a data set where the department of the author was stored in with the page, it was not possible to search for give me all the pages that have test in the text and were created in the department IT, for example. Now we can do that. We can take any metadata you put into MediaWiki, and we can search for this, and we can use the full range of the search to work with it. So, for example, if I wanna, if I go for that department thing, I just chose the filter department, and then I can see, give me all the articles that are assigned to sales, for example. Now I get those 2 articles which are assigned to sales. I can now add another feature, for example, the number of page views. So I mean, it's only 2 pages, but one has 4 page views. Now this search gives me all from department sales, which has the number of page views for example. So the interesting thing is that this is entirely flexible. So whatever metadata you create or you register in your wiki using Semantic Media Wiki can be searched here. In the beta phase, we are still looking for a better way to do this because to do the user experience here, this is potentially a very long list. So we'll have to see if we add another dialogue on top of that, for example, or add some kind of typing filter. But essentially, the functionality is there. This also can be used in an article text to create a dynamic list. So you could also create a list of all the articles that match 1 or 2 of those or 10 of those parameters, and then get a dynamic view within your article. Okay, that is a quick overview over the search. The change we did from Solr to Elasticsearch was essentially because that flexibility we have now was not possible in the old search. That is a key feature of Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch then brings a lot of additional features. You can visualize your data, for example, or you can even put some kind of machine learning algorithm behind the search. We in BlueSpice 3 itself, we are not making use of that range, but I'm pretty sure that the upcoming versions of BlueSpice beyond BlueSpice 3 will increasingly use that to analyze your data and to have or the data in the wiki, of course, and to have different various ways of accessing the data and doing reports and all kinds of things. The next new feature is the new editor, which is the editor of MediaWiki. And just to show you how beautiful this works, I take this main page, which is a pretty complex page in terms of MediaWiki possibilities. It has tables, it has layered diffs, it has templates, it has images. In the old editor, we tried to get as close to that page as possible, but there were restrictions because of the underlying data model. Now, if I edit this page, you see virtually no change in the display of the article, but now I'm in edit mode. So it's not 100%, but it's 98%. What you see is what you get. And even things like templates. So this button here is not a button element in HTML, but it's a MediaWiki template, and they are resolved and displayed, and you can see what's actually in there. I'm pretty impressed. So I have to admit that this is not our work; it's the work of Wikimedia Foundation. They created this for Wikipedia, of course. I'm pretty impressed by the possibilities they have, and we extended these possibilities a little bit. One, curious, interesting feature is we have a cancel button. Wikipedia apparently does not assume that whenever you start that when you start an edit, you want to cancel the edit. So there is no way to cancel your edit. You have to reload the page instead. We think that's not totally usable. A lot of people want to try and then go back. So there's a cancel button in the editor now. Go back to the editor. We have, if I type here, I can of course change things. I guess that is pretty familiar to, if I want to add a heading, I just mark this as subheading 2. Now it's a heading. I can go back and make it a paragraph. I can make it bold, italic, strike through. I don't know what you say in English for this. Stroke. I can set links from here. I'm not in a stroke. You see that there's a link assistant also. You can have all sorts of dynamic content. For example, I can insert media. I can insert an image. Let's see if there's a test image in here. Yeah. So you see, search for it. You can upload. So this is mostly what you would expect. You can also insert templates, like the button you could see here. So this is a template, and you see the which I think is a major advantage over the existing editor we have. You can do inline editing of these elements. So I click on the element, I get this thing called inspector. I click on edit, and then I can actually edit the parameters of this template. So I can say, instead of login, I put do not log in on that text, and you get a live update of how it looks. If you work with MediaWiki and you know how templates work, this is pretty impressive. So templates are text blocks you put on an external article, on an article outside of this main page, and you can parameterize this text block. So usually in the template, people with who are skilled with wiki text, wiki source text, and the possibilities of MediaWiki, they write a complex template for you, and then you can use that template by only changing 1 or 2 parameters, and then you get all the like beautiful formatting which we see here, for example. I think there is a huge potential for future use of wikis, of BlueSpice in organizations. Because up to now, it was kind of hard to use these templates. You had to know, you had to add curly braces in the wiki text to do this. You had to know what the parameters are called, what parameters they take, what kind of values you are allowed. This is no longer necessary. You can prepare the template in a way that it knows which parameters are there and which data types do they take, and then you just tell your users, insert a template. The template, maybe there's one called box info, I think. You add the template box info. So this has a field info text, which is some text, and I insert this, and then I have this beautiful box, which was prepared for someone else, and I didn't really have to do to know a lot of wiki text to it. One last thing is there's also a lot of page properties you can now change from within the editor. Of course, you can assign categories to a page here, but you can also change page settings. For example, you can indicate if you want to always see the table of content or never, which is a magic word. Magic word is something you had to use before, you had to know before. It's also special syntax with underscores and stuff. Now you have it just from within the user interface, and people can use it and can change it. I see there are questions. Let me just check. Yeah, the question is there a view with the actual source, with the source view of this? Yes, you can switch the editor here from visual to source editing. And then you go basically going back to the old wiki code. In some rare cases, that's still necessary because not all tags provided by extensions are supported from within the visual editor. So you have to switch to this view sometimes. But compared to like the old editor, this is really a rare case where you actually have to go back to wiki code. Of course, wiki code is faster if you're familiar with it, so you can still stay here. There's one thing we're currently working on. So I can switch to wiki text without having to save, but if I want to switch back to visual editing, I have two choices. Either I save my changes, or I'd have to discard my changes. That is due to the secure setup we have here. So the code switching occurs in various tiny little elements or server-side services. And one of the services currently does not pass authentication information. So whenever you are required to authenticate before you can actually access the text, switching from wiki text to visual editing requires you to save an intermediate version. We are hoping that we get rid of this situation by the stable version. Unfortunately, we have to rely a little bit on the development of Visual Editor itself. So we are closely following the development there. I know that this very building brick, the server which I talked about, is called REST-Base, is supposed to be reworked in autumn this year, and then people are aware of this issue, and they said then they will take care of this issue. We will see. If it doesn't occur, then Hello World will see what we can do. Okay, another question. Yeah, right. So the question here is about styling options and especially about table options. So I don't want to promise too much here. We are actually aware of the situation, and we know that especially table styling options are not as good as they used to be in BlueSpice 2. Depending on the release schedule, we will try to add some extra formatting, or at least the possibility to add formatting to tables. I just show you how it looks like now if I add a table. And I go to table properties, I don't have a lot of formatting options, and especially one feature that we found missing is expanding the table to the full width of the page. So the line of thought we are following now is to actually add a few more styles here. So here's styled wiki table, and we want to add a few extra styles here. So that will probably happen. Also, the question about text panning, text alignment will probably be done here. So we can do formatted paragraphs, formatted elements. We can insert them here. Having said that, I don't think we will get the full richness that the old editor provided by the time of the stable release. So there will be this. We see it more as an ongoing process, and actually, that's one of the things we are hoping for feedback from the beta testers. So, which of the features are you missing most? Which of the formattings are you missing most? And we will try to make it possible with beta 3, with BlueSpice 3 stable. But features will be added from that on continuously. As people miss it, as we get feedback from you. We had a decision to make, and that was stability versus feature richness. If you have worked with BlueSpice 2, you will find that the editor of BlueSpice 3 is much more stable. It's tested against the whole corpus of Wikipedia, which is, I think, 4 million pages, the English Wikipedia. So every special edge case of syntax you can find out there is considered in this editor, which is basically much more than we could do in the old editor. So it's much more stable. You will, the risk of accidentally losing formatting or spaces or even a few words is down to virtually zero. And that was one of the main reasons why we decided to switch to the native solution. Also, of course, the native solution is still actively developed by the Wikimedia guys. Okay, so that's the quick glance to the editor. There's one last feature which I want to show you, which is a prominent change in BlueSpice 3, and I was already showed you a little bit of that. That's the discussion here at the bottom. So actually, what you can do here is you add a new discussion. What can I do here? And then it also has the visual editor, by the way. I am not so sure what I am supposed to do. And now I post this, and you can see it's now I have this discussion at the bottom of the page. I can also click on the more page because these are only the top 3 discussions which we see here. And here I see the whole range of discussions that are associated with the main page. Now another person can come and can say, okay, I have made a comment. So they click on comments here, and then they can say, okay, it's for testing purposes. Sorry, my spelling. And so you can have a discussion about a certain aspect of a page, for example. You also can work with these discussions, so you can recommend this, highlight it. You can watch these discussions. That's one of the most notable features. So if you watch a discussion, then you get notified every time someone comments on that discussion. Notifications happen here in that personal user area. You can add tags for further filtering, and it's also possible to say, okay, this discussion is yet unresolved, so it's still open. But once we come to an agreement, maybe someone says, I don't like the paragraph, the information is wrong. Then someone fixes this, puts the correct information, and then they can put a comment saying, I fixed this, and then we put the whole discussion on resolve status. So it's okay for now, and people can again filter for this, so resolved will not be displayed in the standard. The question here is, how are the discussion topics ordered? There is a sorting, and you can sort by various parameters. Currently, that is edit date and descending. So the most recently edited item, editing means a commented item or changed item is put on top. You can also, of course, use different kind of sortings here. You can also filter these. Let's just put away the sorting. So I can say I don't want to see archive pages, or I want to see archive pages. I want to see everything from creation date to X. I want to filter the resolved status. So I don't see, I only see resolved now, or I want to see unresolved. And that is also kind of a thing where we need your feedback. This is really a new feature for us. The main focus we put on, we don't want this to be a communication forum. So it's not like Facebook. The main goal is not to have people communicate about how the day was, but the main intention is to bring the content together to help people work on the content. So I assume that the question of how we tune those standard filters, where the information is displayed in what order, will be a critical one to how helpful this feature is. And we decided to give this in the beta test, to put this into a beta test and then see how people like it and what the feedback is on that. So two more things about the timeline. You can also see a list of all actions. There is a timeline, a total list of timeline items. So you can see whatever happened in the whole wiki, and that's one thing we expect to be very interesting for people. So if you put filters here, maybe a little bit of a standard filtering, then you can see, for example, what happens in a certain namespace or in a certain topic area I'm following, and you get informed about the hotspots and all kind of things. That's also true for your profile data. So if I go on my profile page, I see a similar list of activities here on the bottom of the profile page. Yeah, I think the time's almost up. I try to give you an overview of the most prominent features. And now it's time for questions if you have any. Okay, I think you both put your questions on the chat, and if there's more questions, feel always free to get in touch. support@hallowelt.com. And you asked a lot of questions already during the presentation. So again, if there is any questions you need answered, you can get in touch with our support. Otherwise, I hope you liked the presentation, and thanks for taking part in it. And yeah, I wish you a nice day. Bye. Thank you.